The Bridge Builder. On a cold October morning in 1925, a man named Dasarath Manji stood at the base of a massive mountain in Gellore, a small village in India. Dasarath was a poor laborer, an unremarkable man by society's standards. But deep in his chest beat the heart of a hero, though he didn't know it yet. The villagers lived in isolation, hemmed in by a towering rock wall that separated them from the nearest town. On the other side lay hospitals, schools, and markets, resources vital for survival and growth. The only way to access these was to walk 70 kilometers around the mountain. It had always been this way, and the villagers accepted it as their fate. But fate had a cruel way of testing the will of men. One sweltering afternoon, Dasarath's wife, Falguni, was returning home from the fields when she slipped and fell on the rocky path that led around the mountain. Her injuries were severe. Desperate, Dasarath carried her on his back, navigating the treacherous terrain to reach the nearest hospital. Hours later, they arrived, but it was too late. She died before the doctor could see her. Her death shattered Dasarath. He sat at the base of the mountain, staring at its unyielding surface as if it had conspired against him. It wasn't just the mountain that had taken Falguni. It was the years of neglect, the indifference of those who lived comfortably in towns, and the resignation of his fellow villagers. But Dasarath did not wallow in despair for long. That night, he made a vow: no one else in his village would suffer as his wife had. He would carve a road through the mountain, alone if he had to. The impossible task. The next morning, Dasarath arrived at the mountain with a hammer, a chisel, and an iron will. The villagers laughed at him. They called him a fool. How could one man move a mountain? It was a task meant for gods, not mortals. But Dasarath was undeterred. Day after day, he chipped away at the mountain. He worked under the scorching sun, through torrential rains, and in bone-chilling winters. His hands bled, his muscles ached, but he refused to stop. Each strike of his hammer was an act of defiance against the forces that had always conspired to keep his people powerless. His work was slow. The mountain seemed unchanging, indifferent to his efforts. A year passed, then two. Still, the villagers mocked him. They whispered that grief had driven him mad. Let him be, they said. The mountain will bury him. But Dasarath's madness was a madness of purpose. As the years rolled on, a few villagers began to take notice. The mountain's surface, once smooth and unyielding, was now jagged, scarred by the relentless blows of his hammer. Some even began to help him, bringing him food and water as he worked. Still, the progress was painfully slow. Dasarath's hair turned gray, and his body grew frail. But his resolve was as strong as ever. A road through the mountain. It took 22 years. 22 years of relentless toil, of fighting against nature and the doubts of those around him. But on a crisp morning in 1967, Dasarath Manji laid down his hammer and chisel for the last time. Before him lay a path, 110 meters long and 9 meters wide, carved straight through the mountain. What had once been an insurmountable barrier was now a road that connected the village of Gellore to the town of Wazirganj. The journey that had once taken hours, or even days, could now be completed in a fraction of the time. The villagers, who had once mocked Dasarath, now stood in awe. He had done what they had thought impossible. His road wasn't just a physical path, it was a testament to the power of determination and love. News of Dasarath's feat spread far and wide. He became known as the Mountain Man. Government officials, journalists, and even celebrities came to meet him. They marveled at his achievement, but Dasarath remained humble. He didn't care for fame or recognition. All he wanted was to honor his wife's memory and ensure that no one else suffered as she had. A legacy of hope. Dasarath Manji passed away in 2007, but his legacy endures. His road is still in use today, a lifeline for the people of Gellore. Schools, hospitals, and markets are now accessible, and the village has grown and prospered. More than that, Dasarath's story has become a symbol of what one person can achieve when they refuse to give up. His life is a reminder that greatness doesn't come from wealth or power. It comes from the courage to take on impossible tasks and the determination to see them through. Dasarath was a simple man, a little man, in the eyes of the world. But he moved a mountain. And in doing so, he proved that no act of love or determination is ever truly small. This story is based on the real-life achievements of Dasarath Manji, a true hero who demonstrated that even the humblest among us can accomplish extraordinary things.